Chapter 1. The Late Night Bus. The Greyhound bus was ready to leave New Jersey for Ohio. People were tired. Some closed their eyes. Some whispered to each other. David sat in the middle row. He looked at his ticket and thought, "It will be a long night, but I will reach home." The conductor walked down the aisle. He said, "Tickets, please?" David showed his ticket. The conductor nodded and said, "All good." The driver started the bus. The ride began. David leaned back and tried to rest. He thought of his work in the city. He thought of his sister waiting in Ohio. He smiled a little. A woman in front whispered to her son, "Sleep now." The boy said, "Okay, Mom." A man across the aisle took out his phone and said in a low voice, "I'll be there in the morning." He ended the call. The bus felt normal. After an hour, the bus slowed near a small gas station. The driver called, "Short stop, 5 minutes." Some people stretched. Some stayed in their seats. David stayed quiet. He held his backpack close. Then the door opened. A new passenger stepped in. He said nothing. He carried a small old bag. He walked straight to the back row and sat near the window. He kept his head low. David noticed him but looked away. "Just another traveler," he thought. But the conductor frowned for a moment. Still, he said nothing. He went back to his seat near the driver. The bus moved again. David tried to sleep but could not. He thought of the quiet man in the back. He turned a little and saw only the shape of the man's body. The man did not move. He sat very still. David faced forward again. "It is fine," he told himself. The conductor stood up and walked down the aisle. He checked tickets again. "Ticket, please," he said to a couple. They showed it. "Thank you," he said. He reached David. David showed his ticket again. The conductor smiled. Then he reached the back row. He stopped. He looked down. David waited. But the conductor only turned and walked back, his face tight. David whispered, "So, is something wrong?" The conductor forced a smile. "No problem," he said. But his eyes did not match his words. A man sitting across leaned toward David. He whispered, "Did you see the new guy?" David said, "Yes." The man asked, "Where is he from?" David shook his head. "I don't know." The man looked back. "Strange. He's too quiet." David nodded. "Yes, too quiet." Both fell silent. The ride went on. The driver hummed softly. People whispered now and then. Still, David felt a strange weight in the air. He wanted to ask again, but stopped himself. He told himself, "Wait for the next stop. Everything will be clear." But deep inside, David felt a small chill. He could not forget the man with the old bag in the back row. Chapter 2. The Quiet Stranger. The bus moved deeper into the night. David tried to rest again, but his mind stayed busy. He thought of the man in the back row. He thought of the small old bag. He told himself, "It is fine. People travel all the time. Don't think too much." Still, still, he could not let go of the feeling. The conductor stood once more. He walked slowly down the aisle. He asked a few people, "Are you okay?" They nodded. He smiled weakly. When he reached the last row, he stopped again. David looked over his shoulder. The conductor bent a little and whispered, "Ticket, please." No answer came. He whispered again, "Sir, your ticket." There was silence. He straightened and walked back quickly. David leaned into the aisle. "What happened?" he asked softly. The conductor shook his head. "Nothing. Maybe he will show it later," he said. His voice was calm, but his hands were shaking. David noticed it. A young woman 2 seats away spoke in a low voice. "I didn't see him give a ticket." Another man said, "Maybe he paid cash before." The conductor replied, "Yes, maybe." But his face showed doubt. He sat down again. Minutes passed. The bus was quiet. People breathed slowly. Some slept. But David stayed awake. He wanted to look back, but he stopped himself. He whispered to the man across, "Do you see him?" The man nodded. "Yes, he's there. But why so silent?" David said, "I don't know. It feels strange." At last, David turned halfway and looked. The man was still there, head low, hands together, the small bag by his feet. He did not move at all. David turned back quickly. His chest felt heavy. The conductor finally stood again. He walked back with slow steps. This time, he did not even ask. He only stared at the last row for a long moment. Then he returned to his seat. His face was pale. David could not stay quiet anymore. "Sir," he whispered. "Did he answer you?" The conductor looked at him and said, "No. He never speaks." David's eyes grew wide. Then why is he here? The conductor pressed his lips. "I don't know," he said in a low tone. The man across leaned forward. He whispered, "Did anyone see him come in?" David said, "Yes, I saw him at the gas station stop." The man said, "I didn't see him pay." The young woman behind added, "I didn't either." Now small voices spread across the rows. "Who is he? Why is he here? Why no ticket?" The driver spoke without turning his head. "Quiet down. Let me drive." His voice was firm. Everyone went silent. David sat back. His heart was beating faster. He whispered to himself, "This is not normal." He remembered the stranger's face when he entered. It was pale, almost colorless. His eyes never met anyone's. His steps were slow, as if he was heavy inside. David thought, "Why do I remember his bag more than his face?" The bus rolled on. People tried to sleep again, but whispers continued here and there. A boy said to his mother, "I'm scared." The mother held him and said, "Don't worry, just close your eyes." The conductor picked up his pad and counted seats quietly. He wrote numbers. He crossed numbers. He frowned. David watched him. He wanted to ask again, but he waited. Finally, David leaned forward. "How many people are there?" he asked. The conductor looked at him and answered, "One more than tickets sold." David's breath caught. "So someone is not supposed to be here," he said. The conductor whispered, "Yes." The man across them whispered, "It must be him." David nodded slowly. "It has to be him." His hands grew cold. No one wanted to look back now. The last row felt heavy, like a shadow at the end of the bus. People turned their faces forward, but in their hearts, one question stayed alive. Who was the quiet stranger with the old bag? Chapter 3. Strange feelings. The bus moved deeper into the night. David closed his eyes, but his heart did not rest. He felt a weight inside, like something was wrong. He whispered to himself, "It's only in my mind. Nothing more." But the thought of the stranger would not leave. The man across leaned close again. "I don't like this," he said. David nodded. "Me too." The young woman behind whispered, "Why doesn't he move? He has been like a statue." David turned halfway and looked quickly. The stranger was still there, head low, bag by his feet. No sound, no motion. David turned back fast. He breathed hard. The conductor stood up once more. He walked to the last row. He said in a louder voice, "Sir, please, your ticket." Silence. He said again, "Sir, do you hear me?" Silence again. The conductor froze for a second, then walked back fast. His face was pale. He sat down and wiped his hands. David whispered, "Still no answer?" The conductor shook his head. "Not a word," he said. A boy in the front woke up. He rubbed his eyes and asked, "Mom, who are they talking about?" His mother whispered, "Shh, go back to sleep." The boy said, "But I heard them." The mother kissed his head and said, "It's nothing, baby." David felt his chest grow tight. He wanted to ask the stranger himself, but fear stopped him. He whispered to the man across, "Why doesn't anyone go and check him?" The man replied, "Because no one wants to be close to him." David said, "Yes, I feel the same." The driver called from the front, "Quiet, please. Let me focus." His voice was sharp this time. Everyone lowered their voices. Minutes passed. The bus was too quiet. David felt his hands sweat. He thought of his sister waiting at home. He thought, "I just need to reach safe." But another thought came. What if this man is not normal? The young woman spoke again. "I didn't see him blink once." David looked at her in shock. "You mean since he came in?" She nodded. "Yes, not once." The man across shook his head. That's not human," David whispered. "Maybe he's sick." The conductor said in a low voice, "Maybe he's something else." His words spread fear. Everyone who heard him went silent. David pressed his hands together. He whispered, "I want to believe this is nothing." But his heart told him something was wrong. He turned a little again. This time he stared longer. The man's head was still low, but his shoulders looked strange, almost stiff. His bag was at his feet. David could not stop staring at the bag. It looked too old, too wet, like it had been left in rain. He turned forward again quickly. His breath came fast. The man across whispered, "What did you see?" David said, "The bag. It looks wrong." The man asked, "Like how?" David shook his head. "Like it doesn't belong to now," the conductor spoke in a hushed voice. "Listen, I have been on this bus line for 10 years. I have seen many passengers, but never like him." David asked, "What do you mean?" The conductor leaned closer. "He doesn't give a ticket. He doesn't speak. He doesn't blink. And yet, he is here." The words made David's skin cold. He could not reply. He only looked down at his shoes. He wanted the bus to stop soon. The young woman behind whispered, "I feel like he's watching even if his head is down." David nodded slowly. "I feel that too." The bus rolled on. The night grew deeper. People tried to close their eyes, but no one could rest. Every heart carried the same strange feeling. There was a man in the last row, and he was not like the others. Chapter 4. The Missing Man. The bus moved through the night. No one was resting now. The quiet stranger in the back row had changed the air. Every passenger felt it. Every passenger thought about it. Still, no one wanted to speak loudly. Silence was heavy inside the bus. David whispered to the man across, "How long until the next stop?" The man said, "Maybe 1 hour." David sighed. He wanted the bus to stop sooner. He wanted lights. He wanted people around. But here it was only the bus, the driver, the conductor, and the passengers with uneasy faces. The conductor stood again. He said, "I will count one more time." He walked down the aisle. He touched each seat top. He whispered numbers. 1, 2, 3. He reached the last row. He froze. He bent a little. He stayed there too long. Then he stood up fast and walked back with a pale face. David asked softly, "Is he still there?" The conductor looked at him, then away. "Sit down," he said in a weak voice. David pressed his lips. He knew something was not right. The young woman whispered to David, "Did you see his look?" David asked, "When?" She said, "Just now. For a second I looked." His eyes were open. David leaned closer. "And?" She swallowed hard. "They didn't look normal." David's stomach turned cold. The man across shook his head. "This is madness. I'll go back and see for myself." He stood halfway, then sat down again quickly. His hands trembled. "I can't," he whispered. A little boy asked in the front, "Mom, why are people worried?" The mother hugged him. "Nothing, honey, just rest." But her voice was shaking too. The conductor finally said in a low tone, "Listen, I counted again. There are 26 seats filled, but we sold only 25 tickets." His words spread like fire. People whispered, "One extra. One extra." David's chest tightened. He whispered, "So the stranger?" The conductor nodded. "Yes, he is the one." David gathered courage. He said, "Then we must check him." The conductor shook his head. "You don't understand. I did check. The seat looked full. But when I leaned close..." He paused. David asked, "What did you see?" The conductor closed his eyes for a moment. "I saw the bag." "I did not see him." David's heart jumped. "What? You mean..." The conductor cut him. "Yes, the seat was empty." The young woman gasped. "But we all saw him. He came in at the gas station. We all saw him sit down." The man across added, "Yes, I swear I saw him. I even remember his hands. He had long fingers. He held the bag." David whispered, "He was real. He must have been." The conductor shook his head. "Then tell me, where is he now?" Silence filled the bus. Everyone turned a little toward the last row, but not fully. No one wanted to see. The young woman whispered, "I can't look." The man across said, "Me neither." David closed his eyes. He whispered, "But if he is not there, why do we still feel him?" The driver called out, "Everyone stay calm. No moving around." His voice was louder this time. But even he kept checking the mirror again and again. David finally gathered strength. He turned slowly toward the back. His eyes widened. The seat looked empty. Only the old bag sat on the floor. He turned back fast. His body shook. "He's gone," David whispered. The man across asked, "What do you mean, gone?" David's voice broke. "The seat is empty. Only the bag is there." The young woman put her hands to her face. No, I can't take this." The conductor held his pad tight. He said, "I knew it. I knew I wasn't wrong." David whispered, "Then where did he go? The bus never stopped." The conductor answered, "That's the question we all fear." Whispers filled the air. He disappeared. He was there, and now he is not. The boy in the front began to cry. His mother hugged him close. "Don't look back, baby. Don't look back." David leaned forward, his hands shaking. He whispered to himself, "He was here. I saw him. I know he was real." His mind raced. Did he step out without sound? Did he slip away into the dark? Did he ever exist? The conductor spoke again in a low, broken voice. "This is not the first time. I have heard stories, always the same. A man with a small old bag. He sits in the back. He never speaks. Then, he is gone." David's mouth went dry. He asked, "So he was never really one of us?" The conductor did not answer. He only stared ahead with empty eyes. The young woman whispered, "What about the bag? Should we open it?" David looked at her. His voice was low. "No, not yet." The bus rolled on, but silence sat heavy inside. The missing man was no longer in his seat, yet his shadow remained in every mind. Chapter 5. The Lonely Bag. The bus was silent. All eyes faced forward, but every mind thought about the back row. The seat was empty. Only the small old bag sat there. It looked out of place, heavy and wet. David whispered to the man across, "It is still there." The man nodded. "Yes, the bag." The young woman behind spoke softly. "Why didn't he take it with him?" David said, "Because he didn't leave like us." His words made her shiver. The conductor stood. His hands trembled as he walked toward the back. People whispered, "Don't touch it. Leave it." But he kept going. He bent near the seat and stared at the bag. For a long moment, he did not move. Then he turned and walked back quickly. His face was pale. David asked, "What is inside?" The conductor shook his head. "I didn't open it. I only looked. It is very old. The cloth is torn. It smells of rain." David whispered, "Like it has been left outside for years." The conductor nodded. The young woman said, "We can't ride with that thing." The man across said, "But we have no choice. We are stuck here until the next stop." A boy in the front asked, "Mom, whose bag is it?" His mother hugged him close. "Not ours. Don't worry about it." But her voice was weak. She was afraid too. David thought deeply. He whispered, "Maybe the bag holds the answer." The conductor replied, "Or maybe it holds something worse." Minutes passed. The bag sat alone, but its presence was heavy. No one dared to look back for long. Still, everyone felt it. The bus rolled on, but the air was not the same. The man across finally whispered, "I think we should open it." The young woman gasped, "No! What if it's cursed?" The man said, "We can't ride in fear all night. We must know." David looked at the conductor. "What do you think?" The conductor pressed his lips. "I have heard stories," he said. "Always the same. A bag is left behind. Inside there is something old, something from the past." David leaned closer. "What kind of past?" The conductor shook his head. "An accident, a tragedy. I don't know which one, but I know this isn't the first." The young woman whispered, "So he comes again and again?" The conductor said, "Yes, the vanished passenger." His voice was heavy. David felt his skin grow cold. He asked, "Then tonight we are part of his story too?" No one answered. The bus hit another bump. People gasped. Some held the seat in front of them. The driver called out, "Stay calm. Road is rough." But even his voice sounded afraid now. David could not stop staring at the aisle. The back row pulled his eyes like a magnet. He whispered, "I can't take it anymore. I will open it." The man across said, "I will go with you." The young woman cried, "No, don't." David stood slowly. His legs were shaking. He took one step, then another. The conductor held his arm. "Wait," he said. David stopped. "What is it?" he asked. The conductor whispered, If you open it, you may not like what you find. David looked at him. But we need to know. The conductor's eyes dropped. Then do it at your own risk. David moved to the last row with the man across. They stood before the lonely bag. David bent down slowly. His hands shook as he touched the old handle. It was cold, wetter than he expected. He whispered, "It feels wrong." The man across said, "Just open it fast." David pulled the zip halfway. A smell rose from the bag. Old, damp, heavy. The young woman covered her mouth. "Stop!" she cried. But David kept going. Inside the bag was not clothes, not food, not normal things. It was a folded newspaper, yellow and weak. David lifted it with shaking hands. The headline read, "Bus accident on Highway 80, 26 dead, 1 missing." David's breath froze. He whispered, "This is from 2005. The man across whispered, "That's 20 years ago." The conductor closed his eyes. "I knew it," he said. "The missing passenger. He never left." David dropped the paper back into the bag. His hands shook. He whispered, "So he was not alive. He was only finishing a journey he never ended." The bus was silent again. Everyone stared forward, afraid to speak. The lonely bag stayed on the floor, holding the past, holding the secret of the vanished passenger. Chapter 6. The Old Newspaper. David held the yellow paper in his hands. It was fragile, ready to tear. He read the headline again. "Bus accident on Highway 80, 26 dead, 1 missing." His voice shook as he whispered the words. The man across leaned close. "Read it all," he said. David unfolded the paper slowly. The letters were faded but still clear enough. The first line said, "A bus traveling at night lost control on Highway 80. 26 people were reported dead. 1 passenger was never found." David's chest grew heavy. He whispered, "This was the same road, the same kind of bus." The young woman covered her mouth. "That can't be true," she said. The conductor nodded. "It is true. I have heard drivers talk about it. Long ago, a bus full of people crashed. They say everyone was found, except 1. David read more. "Officials searched for days. The missing passenger had boarded with a small old bag. His body was never recovered." He stopped. His voice was shaking too much. The man across finished the line. "His name was never known." The driver spoke from the front, his voice tense. "Stop reading out loud. People are scared." But everyone had already heard enough. The bus was filled with whispers. The bag. The same man. The missing one. David put the paper back into the bag for a moment. His hands were still trembling. He whispered to himself, "We saw him. He was real. But this says he died 20 years ago." The young woman leaned forward. "So what was he doing here tonight?" David looked at her. "Maybe he is still looking for the seat he lost." She shook her head. "That is not human." The conductor rubbed his forehead. "I told you, this is not the first time. Some nights he comes, he sits, he carries the bag. Then he vanishes. Always the same, David whispered. But why us? Why this bus? The conductor said, because we are on the same road. Maybe his spirit rides again and again. A boy's small voice came from the front. Mom, is the man coming back? His mother, Anne, hugged him close. No, baby, just sleep. But her eyes showed fear. David opened the paper again. The last part of the report said, witnesses claimed they saw a pale man near the site even after the crash, standing alone with a bag. But no one could confirm. The man across whispered, that's him, the same pale face. We saw it tonight. David nodded. Yes, the same. The young woman shook her head. I don't want to sit here anymore. But there was nowhere else to go. The bus rolled on. No one could escape the story now. David folded the paper carefully and put it back inside the bag. He whispered, it belongs there. It's his, not ours. The conductor agreed. Yes, don't keep it. Leave it in the bag. The bus grew quiet again, but the silence was not peace. Every person was thinking about the man who had entered with them. Every person was thinking about the crash from 2005. David leaned back and closed his eyes for a moment. He whispered, a man lost his life here. He never reached home. And now, after so many years, he still travels. The man across said, he vanished tonight. But what if he comes back again before we stop? The young woman gasped. Don't say that. The conductor lowered his voice. We must be calm. He does not harm. He only rides. He only leaves the bag. But David knew the truth. The bag was not just an object. It was a reminder, a sign from the past. The old newspaper proved that the stranger was never alive tonight. He was the missing man, forever traveling, forever returning, forever vanishing. The bus kept moving through the night. The bag stayed in its place, quiet but powerful. And every passenger sat frozen, waiting, wondering if the vanished man would appear again before the journey was done. Chapter 7. The Dark Truth. The bus rolled on, but no one relaxed. The old newspaper had changed everything. Now every passenger knew the truth. The quiet stranger had been dead for 20 years. Still, he had traveled with them tonight, David whispered to the man across. We are sitting on the same road where he died. The man nodded. Yes, that is why he comes. The young woman leaned forward. But why us? Why now? David shook his head. Maybe it is not about us. Maybe it is about him. The conductor stood near the front. He spoke in a low, broken voice. I will tell you what drivers have told me before. The missing man rides only on nights like this. Dark nights, long roads, few stops. He gets on without sound. He takes the last row. He brings the same bag. Then, when the time comes, he vanishes. David asked, So we are not the first to see him? The conductor replied, No. Many buses, many drivers, always the same story. But the man is never caught, never explained. The young woman shook her head. This is not possible. Ghosts are not real. David looked at her with tired eyes. Then what did we see tonight? She had no answer. She covered her face with her hands. The man across leaned closer to David. Do you feel it? David asked. What? The man whispered, like he is still here, like the bag is watching us. David shivered. Yes, I feel it too. The boy in the front cried again. Mom, I'm scared. His mother rocked him. Don't look back. Don't think about it. But her own hands shook. The conductor walked slowly toward the bag. He bent down and stared at it. He whispered, Do you want to know the darkest part? David said, What do you mean? The conductor stood tall and looked at everyone. That old report was not the only one. There were more accidents, other buses, always on Highway 80, always with passengers who saw the same man. People gasped. The young woman said, So he is not just a memory. He is a warning. The conductor nodded. Yes. Some say he rid on S before another accident. Some say he brings death. David's chest tightened. He whispered, You mean we might not reach home? The conductor pressed his lips. I do not know, but I know his presence means danger. The bus grew heavy with silence. Even the driver did not speak now. He only gripped the wheel tighter. His eyes kept checking the mirror, as if expecting to see the pale face again. David whispered to himself, We must stay calm. We must not panic. But deep inside, fear had already taken control. He felt the truth pressing on him. The man was not only a lost soul, he was a shadow tied to tragedy. The man across finally spoke. What if he comes back before the stop? David swallowed hard. Then we will know the truth for sure. The young woman whispered, I don't want to see him again. David looked at her. Neither do I. The conductor sat down slowly. His voice was low. The dark truth is simple. The vanished passenger never left. His body was never found. His journey never ended. And until it ends, he will ride again and again. David closed his eyes. He whispered, So tonight, we are part of his ride. No one answered him, but every heart felt the same. The bus continued into the dark road, carrying the living, the bag, and the memory of the man who was never meant to be there. Chapter 8. The Passenger Who Never Left. The bus was close to Ohio now. Lights from the city were still far, but people could feel the end of the ride coming. Yet nobody was calm. Every person thought about the same thing. The man who had sat in the back row and then vanished. David whispered to the man across, We will never forget this night. The man nodded. I will never take this road again. The young woman leaned forward. I can still see his face when I close my eyes. David shivered. So can I. The conductor sat with the small old bag in his lap. He touched it gently, almost with respect. He spoke in a low voice. Do you want to know why the bag always comes back? Everyone leaned closer. He said, Because it belongs to him. No one can keep it. No one can throw it away. It always returns to the road. David asked. So you will take it back to the old station? The conductor nodded. Yes, I will leave it there. And one night, another bus will stop, and another driver will see him again. The young woman shook her head. That's not fair. He was just a man. He wanted to go home. Her voice broke. Maybe his family waited for him. Maybe they still wait. David's eyes filled. Maybe that is why he rides. Maybe he is still trying to finish the journey. The bus grew quiet. No one wanted to argue. Fear was still inside them, but now sadness was stronger. The boy in the front asked, "Mom, will he come back?" His mother kissed his forehead. "Yes, baby, but not for us. Tonight he has gone." The driver spoke for the first time in a while. I have driven this line for 20 years. I never believed the stories. Tonight I do. I saw him in the mirror. He was real. And then he was gone. He is the passenger who never left. The bus slowed as it reached the Ohio station. People stood quickly, but no one pushed. They wanted to leave, yet they wanted to stay together. David held his bag and looked at the last row one last time. It was empty, but the memory of the pale man filled it completely. The conductor stood with the old bag in his hands. David whispered, "Be careful." The conductor nodded. "Don't worry, he won't harm me. He never harms anyone. He only waits." The doors opened. One by one, the passengers stepped into the cool night air. Some looked back at the bus. Some did not dare. David was the last to leave. He stopped at the door. He looked at the conductor and said, "Will his story ever end?" The conductor gave a sad smile. "Not until he reaches home." David stepped onto the ground. He felt the fresh air on his face. For the first time, he was free. But in his heart, he knew he would carry this night forever. The bus pulled away slowly. David watched the red lights fade into the distance. He whispered to himself, "The passenger who never left," and somewhere, on another night, on another bus, the quiet stranger would rise again. He would step inside with his small old bag. He would take the last seat. He would vanish before the ride was over, because some journeys never end, and some passengers never leave.